criminal scum! What are you doing, tippy-toeing around here, night thief? This is the podcast Raw Dogs. Now, pay the fine or serve your sentence. Then pay with your blood! Ah! Oh! No one gets away with that in my city. No! I've been murdered.
Dylan, the reason that we're talking about this game today is your fault.
I made you play it.
You made me play it as a New Year's challenge.
Yes, I did.
Because I notoriously had never played a Souls game, and I guess I had tried to play Dark Souls 1 once for like 5 minutes, and it just, well, maybe like a half an hour, but it wasn't working for me. And you threw down the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I gave you a pretty simple task.
Fuck you for saying beating Gascoigne. It wasn't a simple task for me. It was a task.
I guess I was in on the language of Souls games to begin with, so I kind of understood everything already.
There is its own language. Like, you have to rewrite your brain to play a Souls game, which it took a long time for my brain to start thinking differently.
It's intuitive though. You have to admit, there's the way they map those buttons is so just on the dot. Like, I can't tell you if there's a badly placed button.
My only criticism possibly would be that you hold running and jumping.
That's never been good.
Holding the run button, you have to take your thumb off the thumbstick, and I
tap it.
So I wind up pulling my pointer finger up and holding that, so I can still like look around. Because if you're running from something, you're fucking running from something.
I guess you're right on that one. It's I got so used to it.
There's a couple of spots in the game, like at Forbidden Woods, and there's a spot in the research hall where you actually have to do granted, they're not even like a tough jump, but triggering the jump is tough, and then also it's just unpredictable.
You have to time it out pretty specifically. They're generous enough though. Even if you fail the first time, you can kind of figure it out. You just might lose a bit of HP.
Dylan, when was the first time you played Bloodborne?
The day it came out. It was around March of 2015, I think.
The day it came out, you picked it up.
Yeah. Well, I had to. It's a Hidetake Miyazaki video game.
This is a name that I'm now very familiar with. There's two Miyazakis in my life that I care deeply about. Mm-hmm. And I want to get tattoos from Bloodborne as well, apart from just Mononoke.
I was thinking of getting, because you get 3 runes, right? Mm-hmm. I just want 3 runes on my arm like that.
That'd be sick.
Right? Yeah.
Or just get, shave my head and just tattoo eyes all over my scalp.
Yeah, I'm sure Carly will stay with you.
Yeah, hopefully I never go bald. The balder I get, the more insight I have.
I need eyes. Yeah.
Did you beat it before they made the first big patch? Because I heard that the first iteration of the game was
rough.
A little rough, yeah.
Frame rate, but that's From Software. They put out a fucking game. I think that they're pretty focused on their time frames. Bloodborne, yeah, it was a little janky. Frame rates would dip to about 15 in certain points.
Yikes.
Which isn't crazy if you've played the original Dark Souls and gone to Blighttown.
Yeah.
Blighttown is an absolute nightmare.
Okay.
In the remaster, it's perfectly good. You're fine. Every time I play the remaster of Dark Souls and I get to Blighttown now, I'm just like, something's not right.
The only super noticeable frame drops that I was having while playing the patch version was in the research hall. There's that one room where there's like the 20 students, like the goopy students, whatever they are, the Byrgenworth students, and they all start vomiting, and the frame rate just goes down to, I swear, like 2 frames a second.
There's a lot of processing going on there. I'm surprised they put that many in there, to be honest, but...
Yeah, that has become my farming spot if I need to get more blood echoes, though. So I guess kind of where Bloodborne comes from, it's an interesting story. From Software, I guess Miyazaki was making Demon Souls, and they were so busy with their other bigger IPs, which I don't even remember the names of because they're not as big as what the other ones have become.
Metal Wolf Chaos, maybe?
Some mech shit, probably, but
Yeah,
it was like
Core, yeah.
It was a perfect storm where he was able to make the first Souls game, and people really weren't paying attention because they were more concerned with the other stuff. And the people at Sony decided they didn't really care for Demon Souls, so they didn't want to release it in America.
Yeah.
What a screwing the pooch moment.
First of all, this suffers from bad video game cover syndrome. It also suffers from being a relatively unknown Japanese developer at the time.
Yeah.
Unless you were in a very specific and niche kind of frame. Dark Souls, Demon Souls, when I first played Demon Souls, it was literally because someone on a forum said, no, just play it. And I was like, well, okay. I go to the Mega Media Exchange. I pick it up for $8.
Yeah.
$8 fucking dollars.
Well, and it's there's a reason that people call them Souls games too, because it is its own new style of game that people even ape onto other franchise, like other kinds of games now. It is the Dark Souls of platformers.
I think they usually do that when it comes to like difficulty, which annoys the shit out of me.
Which Dark Souls are not just difficulty games, or Bloodborne. Like the Souls games are not just about difficulty. They are difficult, and I think one of the strongest things that they do is the way that they handle storytelling, and it's not obtrusive, and it's one of those things where the more you look into it and the more you try and find things, the more you're going to get.
Well, the gameplay loop feeds itself. It's all about exploration and combat and getting items to promote yourself essentially, or to level up. But through that process, if you look at like even like item descriptions, or you pay attention to how a space is laid out, you pull in so much information and you can kind of make guesses. That's what's absolutely fascinating. There's always a secret or something around every corner. And for me, exploration might be my number one in video games. If you show me something, like give me a playground to play in, but if there's like a little hidden corner that I can kind of weasel my way through, that's my prime video game.
There could be something as simple as just a random dead end on one street you're walking on, and there's just a corpse laying back there, and someone's like, "Did you see what the corpse is wearing?"
Yeah.
I'm going to write a 10-page essay about this because it actually warrants exploring that much story. How did a member of the choir get down here? What was going on in this situation?
Yep. Or famously in Dark Souls, there is a charred corpse at the end of kind of like a hallway by some gates. And when you pick up the item in it, it says Twin Humanities, which means that she was probably pregnant when she died. It's just that level of detail that absolutely astonishes me. To be honest, when I first played Bloodborne, I could not make heads or tails of the story.
No.
Whereas with Dark Souls, they give you this immediate framework. Here's our creation myth.
Yes.
Now we put you in the world with that already in your head.
Here's your Estus flask.
Yep.
Get out there.
Just go and do it. Whereas Bloodborne, they show you a very cryptic exchange between two dudes.
It couldn't be more cryptic.
Couldn't be more cryptic.
And so, something I really love about the way that Bloodborne's marketing was handled, they didn't say this is the Lovecraft game.
Nope.
It's a werewolf game. It's very much just gothic and Victorian. It looks like it's going to be a Dracula werewolf kind of,
which it still kind of is.
It still is, and especially like the first part of the game. That's all it is.
Oh, by the way, obviously spoilers. I honestly, my full recommendation is go into this as blind as you can and just have fucking fun, because I think that's what you did, Brad.
Yeah, I went. Well, before we get into that, I think it's also cool to just mention that Bandai steps up and they're like, we'll take your Dark Souls games. We'll take care of them. So the next three Dark Souls games are on all consoles, and Sony realized we need to have a new IP so we can have a Sony exclusive big badass game.
Well, they gave him all the money he wanted. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
Because at that time, Dark Souls was really popping off. This is a year after the release of Dark Souls 2, and a year after Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3 is released.
And then
so he was directing 2 Souls games around the same time.
A lot of that gameplay loop is related.
Yeah, there's the framework's all there.
But I guess kind of the big story beats and the mythos behind the worlds is what varies greatly. They're all, I mean, all of these games have a mythic feel to them, kind of a universal spiritual approach to a lot of things. But my God, Bloodborne leans into cosmic horror in such a great way. But let's go back to what you were mentioning, like the beginning of the game. You're on a hospital bed.
Oh, yeah. Pale blood. Well, you've come to the right place. Yharnam is the home of blood ministration. You need only unravel its mystery. But where's an outsider like yourself to begin? Easy, with a bit of Yharnam blood of your own. But first, you'll need a contract.
And it's very vague. All of a sudden, there's this like beast coming at you after you receive the blood, and then
you pass out, and then you wake up, and you make your way downstairs, and there's a werewolf essentially just stalking this kind of research area, and you're supposed to try and fight it. At this point, you only have your fist, and it is
you do some sick karate chops though. I do like the karate chop motions he has.
If you do a heavy attack, yeah. If you press that R2 button.
It's interesting that you can't get a weapon unless you go into the Hunter's Dream.
Unless you die first.
Because I would love to see somebody just karate chop the shit mastery. Like, how far can you get without ever going into the Hunter's Dream, though?
There are people who've done it.
And the werewolf's one thing. I want to see a motherfucker beat Gascoigne with a karate chop.
It's pretty impossible without parries.
It is, I guess, yeah, those without a gun, you'd be really fucked.
Because Gascoigne is the parry tutorial, essentially.
Well, yeah, and that's something that they do very well, because I haven't played the Souls game, but I've seen enough critiques and essays to know that the shield is very sacred in Dark Souls, and it's something that a lot of people rely on, and it kind of becomes their gameplay loop rather than kind of branching out.
It has its own quality to it, because whenever you get hit on your shield, sometimes it doesn't cover the entirety of the attack, or it drains a lot of stamina from every hit, so it becomes a point of management. There are people who are so good with shields in that game, they haven't received a single bit of damage. The way I play these days, I avoid the shield because it's a much slower way to play, which Bloodborne, I think, understood me at the time.
Right at the beginning, you can choose to do play online or play offline. So the first time I played, I just chose online. I didn't know what the difference would be.
Right.
And these little notes are peppered throughout the world.
Yeah.
I found them very valuable at first, and I would read them all. And eventually, I found the world just kind of got littered with these things, and I quit reading them. So what's great on
sometimes they're kind of spoilery. They're like, ooh, something like they're preset messages. We should say that, and you have to construct a 2-part, almost like a haiku, like a small poem. And then usually, if you place it in a certain place, people can glean like, oh, around this corner, something's about to jump out at me. I played offline completely the first time I played it. It's the way I first played Demon Souls, and it's the way I first played Dark Souls. It was just important to me to just experience the thing.
So I never had an experience where another player entered into my game. Now, because there's also PvP in this, correct? It's amazing. I
got into it later, but
there's a lot more to this game. But so then these notes are on there. I found on my third playthrough now, I'm doing play offline.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's like now I see a note and I know, okay, this is very
actually important.
Deliberate. Although I do enjoy when I see a bunch of barrels and the note says, time for some rolling or something like that. I'm like, very cute.
Yep.
So you start off in Yosefka's clinic and then you emerge out here into Central Yharnam.
A very nice woman, Yosefka.
So this is just one character that you start off in her clinic, and then you can like turn around and go back. The door's closed, and she's like, "You're exposed, man. You're not wearing a face mask.
You got the Rona.
No face mask. Get out of here." But if you find some good people, send them our way. But okay, she's probably doing good doctor stuff, but we really don't know anything about her beforehand other than she's running a clinic too. I mean, if she's doing blood administration, she's working for the church.
She's just someone alive in this world, and on the night of a very important hunt.
Yeah, and the hunt is a very core concept, man. It's so tricky. How do you want to go into these things? But what we learn of the hunt,
I can explain it pretty well, actually.
All right, lay it on.
So the hunt is now this is going to be full of not just the interpretations we've read online, but our personal ones, because I've developed a lot of theories myself, and which I can back up.
There's headcanon to these things, because there is not a Miyazaki didn't write the hunt is this and it means that.
The hunt is a reoccurring thing in the world of Bloodborne, like the physical world. It's a night where the moon gets close to the earth, and everyone who is infected by the blood is transformed into hideous beasts.
Yeah.
And throughout all of this, there are people called hunters. And then they are summoned to a dreamlike area.
But not all hunters. The original Hunters Workshop, started by Gehrman, was in the Healing Church, and it wasn't until the
I'm talking about the modern take on
the modern
hunters.
take, because even then, there's just like the Healing Church hired Ludwig. There's so many names here, people. I played this the first time I played through this. I was like, you read the name Ludwig, and he just has a sword I use. Turns out there's a lot going on here.
Yes,
but Ludwig started when the Healing Church was like coming open with stuff. Then he was hiring just anyone. He's like, we need to. It was almost like band together, America. Enlist now.
Exactly. Well, I think one of the things you have to understand about this world is that it's based on this idea that there's always something hidden underneath, either psychologically or physically. Because most of what this entire game, its themes are enlightenment through physical means or through spiritual means.
Evolution.
And it's just two warring clans, and both of them suck.
And I guess, like, right at the beginning of the game, it kind of has a more focus on just the beastliness inside of man and succumbing to your animal urges. Eventually, if you have whatever this tainted blood, like, just from what you know at the beginning, whatever this tainted blood is, you will eventually succumb to the scourge of the beast, and
everyone does
become a monster eventually. And it's great. So you go out there and you start exploring Central Yharnam, and you start running into, your first bad guys. They look like kind of villagers. Some look more human than others, and then some are clearly like venturing into half beast mode.
Yeah. It's a blood rage type of thing. They form mobs or packs, and they're just wandering the streets, ready to torch anyone who looks even close to a full beast.
There was only one time when we were all out drinking, and we were in a car ride, and we were going to Boone and Crockett, and I saw half beast Dylan in the back. You were so drunk.
Yeah. Only when the moon gets close enough.
Drunks in the workshop.
I do fear the old blood.
And it's funny. I mean, there's even one of the item descriptions, which is another spot you'll find a lot of lore. It says, actually, there's more blood produced than alcohol in Yharnam because blood gets you more fucked up, gets you drunker, essentially.
Well, we should say the reason that so many people take this blood, or they get the transfusions, or they drink it, or whatever, is because it's kind of a cure-all drug.
And I mean, we'll get into it a little bit later where how they get this blood, but essentially there's this healing church, and they do blood ministration with this miracle blood that people are flooding from around, like, outside of Yharnam too. It's become this place where you want to go get this blood ministration, which might be the reason that our main character comes there. There is...
you seek the pale blood.
Yes. It's interesting that is the first thing your character is told to do, seek the pale blood to transcend the hunt. And you only hear the term pale blood, I think, 3 more times throughout the entire game.
About 3, if I remember. I don't know, but every time I heard it, I'm like, I just don't know what this is.
Yeah, and
there are clues.
I mean, it's the same reason I love that Stanley Kubrick, when someone says, "What's The Shining about?" He's like, "Did you watch it?" Then just...
That's it.
Then make up your mind about it, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if he was to say, the pale blood means this. It would kind of diminish it, because it's greater to have the discussion.
Yeah. The pale blood is It's this idea or something that you feel like you achieve further in the future. Because if you were to just start out this game and you create your little origin, I always go with milk toast or something like that because that's one of the ones in the option.
It's just a good word. I like the word milk
I just
toast.
like milk toast a lot. It's very funny.
Great for breakfast.
So, like, you have to give the player some sort of idea of why you keep pressing forward. Otherwise, you're just a dude wandering around, which video games can be that. But I don't think for this purpose that makes any sense.
So most people do die, though, at that very first werewolf still in the clinic, like you said. And then you awaken in the hunter's dream, which, video games, you're just conditioned to kind of have the home base that you go back to. You might build it up here. You might do this there. You can rest, have a storage locker.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of conditioned to it. I didn't second guess anything. I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Now you're here. Yeah.
But now I'm here. I'm like, okay, what the fuck is the doll doing there?
In an infinite field of flowers, and it's just this one lone workshop.
And it's it's reflective of the character in the game too. Like the more insight you have, the more you see in the world.
Yep.
God damn it, you're so good, Miyazaki. Oh man.
So there are 2 consumables in the game. One is blood echoes, which you get for slaying beasts and non-beasts alike. Everyone has a certain amount of blood echoes in them.
Yep.
And then the other one is insight. And insight is your knowledge of the world around you. It's your perception. And based on how much insight you have, it actually affects the way that you see the world within the game as well.
And there's no manual. But I guess if you wander around the hunter's dream, there are little notes like circle does this, X does that. Whatever,
a tutorial with little ghost guys who come crawling up. Yeah.
Yeah. And you get introduced to the messengers, which you don't. Again, another thing you don't really question, like, oh, this is where I buy stuff. I guess my understanding of who the messengers are is that they're just heavily tied to the moon presence. Because actually, early concept art, you can see like them messengers like in the moon presence.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's just his or her will. I guess the moon presence.
They're also kind of like to me, they kind of read as like fairies or. In a world full of like werewolves, I'm like, well, if we're gonna go there, we might as well go everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. It's all about how you perceive them because each one of these beasts, which you see in like classic monster movies or even in like old folklore, they kind of have like a twist on them. Even like what you would consider vampires are basically the vile bloods.
Yes.
Yeah. So everyone's here. You just got to figure it out. There are even like ideas that some are mummies and, like the undead and zombies.
I think that I've learned everything about this game, and then someone's like, there's only 2 kinds of enemies. There's this and this, but then there's the third, vermin. I'm like, what the fuck is vermin? Can we all...
Well, you don't know the little centipede guys?
And now I've learned about the vermin as well. But when you go to the hunter's dream, you're introduced... Well, you're not introduced to the doll. There is a doll laying there. But the messengers, these little white guys, are reaching up out of the stairs to give you weapons. And you can choose between...
The saw cleaver?
I think it was not a saw spear, the threaded cane.
The threaded cane and the hammer, the hunter's axe, sorry.
Yeah. And
which one did you choose?
The reason I don't remember the other ones is because that saw cleaver is too damn sexy.
The saw cleaver is iconic.
It is iconic. I mean, it's on the cover art.
I considered getting a saw cleaver on my forearm because I've been looking for something to put on my forearm as a tattoo.
Yeah.
Like a saw cleaver and then like a pistol on the other one.
Man, I don't know if I were to get a Bloodborne tattoo. I really like the idea of just getting a lamp, one of like the respawn points.
Yeah.
And also like getting a rune because like the runes.
The runes, they actually have like symbolic significance, yeah.
And they're trick weapons, these things. You hit L1, your saw cleaver can go from a short range weapon to like a longer weapon, so you have more reach.
Longer reach, but slower swing. That's essentially the trade-off.
And I spent just getting past the first mob took me probably 2.5, 3 hours because
you're not used to how
I've been
it works.
playing Skyrim. I've been playing other games where you go in there, you just smack X as hard as you can, and then if you need to, you just spam items. Yeah. I never realized how much I'm not using strategy in video games.
Yeah. This is what this game does. The everything when the argument that people have why can't this have any difficulty settings? I think inherently, and people can argue about this with me till they're blue in the face, I think it completely ruins the artistic intent behind the creation. Mm-hmm. Without that, you're just kind of breezing through stuff. You're not actually paying attention. You're not getting almost the survival horror aspect of what these games are trying to do. It's resource management. Mm-hmm. It's thinking on your feet. And if you didn't have to think about any of that stuff, well, then it's just like, well, why did I create this rich, enticing world if people aren't going to see half of it?
Yeah. Easy mode just defeats the entire point of gameplay for most games. And it's got a core experience. And it's great that when someone says, I beat Father Gascoigne, you're like, welcome.
Yeah, you know it. You know it almost immediately. And then when you talk to them and then you say, did you defeat the Orphan of Kos? And then they go, no, what's that? And it's just like, download the DLC.
Yeah.
Have you played the Old Hunters yet?
I bought the Old Hunters last night, and I started it about 5 hours ago.
That's got very important lore in it.
I've done the research.
Oh, okay.
I've done the research
I was gonna say,
because I know how important that lore is. But
there's some cool surprises in there, even though you did the research.
Yeah, it's really great. I just got to the top of the research hall, so I'm ready to fight the living failures in the balcony, and I'm excited to meet Maria for the first time. But
you're not going to have fun. Not
with Maria? Ludwig gave me enough difficulty.
Ludwig was pretty devastating.
Yeah.
I had trouble with Lawrence.
Well, and there's one of the concepts with the game. So there's bosses. Yep. And there are bosses are meant to be a hurdle. They're meant to be a point of difficulty. Ground. And the first one that you can run into is the cleric beast. Mm-hmm. Yes, and he's technically optional, but he should be the first one.
Fighting him because they think the way forward is through him.
Yeah, well, that's because NPCs are so few and far between. Before I guess we get there, you also meet Gehrman in the Hunter's Dream.
You must be the new hunter. Welcome to the Hunter's Dream. This will be your home. For now, I am Gehrman, friend to you hunters. You're sure to be in a fine haze about now, but don't think too hard about all of this. Just go out and kill a few beasts. It's for your own good.
Old dude in the wheelchair. Mm-hmm. He's missing his right foot. Mm-hmm. One of the books in his room is like how to hang with women or how to hook up with women. Is someone like zoomed in on one of those?
Yeah.
And he even makes a creepy point like,
we don't have as many tools as we once did, but you're welcome to use whatever you find. Even the doll, should it please you.
I prefer not to either.
Yeah, and
if I wanted to fuck a real doll in the real world, I could do that.
Yeah, that's a real thing.
Yes,
they don't even require blood echoes for me to level up.
Although calling it fucking is a little...
That's another podcast. The Dylan Experience.
Yeah, coming to Greenlit.
Another important aspect for level design is shortcuts, because you are often going to be tasked with fighting some pretty difficult bad guys and beasts, and you're going to eventually, like the first one, the first level in Central Yharnam, you'll get to a lamp, and then you can spawn at that lamp. You'll run around this long way, and eventually you can open up a gate.
To get back to it, yeah.
And for me, spending the first hour to get that far and getting to the gate, I was like, thank fucking God. Because you have to teach yourself how to play these games again, but... Central Yharnam is pretty great. You have the mobs. You have some of these like brick troll guys.
It's full of like warehouses. It's full of
there's like
really
a dock
great
and a sewer
apartments. Yeah, I mean it's your basic kind of London. Mm-hmm. You're just getting a straight up just like these are just. I mean the cities look like ramshackle and weird, and there's crap lining the streets and stuff like that. But you can tell that if all that stuff were cleaned up and the sky wasn't bright orange all the time.
Yeah.
That it would be a pretty good looking place.
Yeah, I think Yharnam was probably really great before the church came along and started putting its will on there. You only meet a handful of NPCs in the game altogether, but you meet a few of them right away. And the first one you meet is Gilbert right by the first lamp. And he's the guy's like, yeah, if you're looking like pale blood, I don't know what that is, but if you seek blood ministration, go to the Grand Cathedral. They might be able to help you. It's over the bridge. And then after you fight the cleric beast and the door's locked at the end, he's like, oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
My bad.
That's kind of because it threw me for a loop when I first played it because I'm like, this is the most Souls boss I've ever played. Like, I'm like, really? You're just going to throw one of these at me? Because if you play other Dark Souls games, there's a big hulking something.
Yeah.
And it's big and it's got nasty claws and that's like its defining feature.
So
and
it's just very kind of like, Souls-ish.
Yeah, you're kind of like, well, I already know how to deal with this guy. Like, it's just like you dodge, which in this is so much easier than Souls. You just sidestep, slash away, move away, wait till he does his combos, then you move back in. Sometimes you get a parry in if you figure it out that early. I didn't. It took me a long time. But
dude, I was so bad at parrying.
It's rough.
My first playthrough, I didn't do almost any parrying at all because I was so
worried.
I was so worried about
it's so risky.
Because if you mess up, then you're just getting destroyed. The cleric beast is likely the first time you're going to receive insight. So I didn't even realize I was collecting insight. I didn't even know what was happening. But just from seeing or experiencing something in the world, you could just be talking to a skeleton. You could have a beast show up.
Yeah.
You're going to have more insight to how the world's really working.
Yep.
And Insight has some very interesting gameplay mechanics later on, but after you get your first insight, that's when the doll wakes up in the hunter's dream, and you're able to start leveling up. Which, thank God.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I think, the first hurdle.
And that's why I still think the cleric beast is non-optional.
Yeah. Because I mean, or you can get the insight from Gascoigne if you wanted to get all the way over there. But
no, that's
a tough spot to get to.
You should at least have some stats upped, like your strength.
Cleric beast was overall pretty straightforward to me. I didn't think he was too difficult of a boss. It's interesting when you listen to other podcasts or you just read other people's experiences. Certain bosses for other people are like, I spent forever at this one, and other bosses that they beat the first try, and it's completely different for other people.
Yeah,
Cleric Beast wasn't tough for me, but a lot of people didn't think Martyr Ligarius was tough, and I fucking suffered against Ligarius.
I beat Ligarius first try.
Yeah, it's strange how that works.
I think it's because he was more projectile based than anything.
Yeah.
And I'm in video games, I'm very good at like dodging projectiles. Like I have, especially when your character moves as fast as he does or she in the game. The hunter moves very swiftly, especially that dodge maneuver. You can dodge forward, dodge back. There's a whole axis to it.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a cleric beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for those homing ones from Ligarius. Those ones, those are the killers.
There's a lot of at least towers you can kind of duck behind there. Lore of the Cleric Beast, you find out a little bit more about him because after you beat him, you're able to buy the Hunter Chief emblem, and this emblem unlocks the Cathedral Gate, which the Cathedral Gate is only supposed to unlock when the captain of the guards returns saying the hunt is over. So the captain of the guard is the Cleric Beast who has gone mad, and he's protecting the bridge when you're coming over. He's trying to prevent you from coming in. And something that's kind of interesting with what I think a lot of the people that have succumbed to the Scourge do is that they kind of go about their daily lives. It's like in those zombie movies where a zombie still knows kind of what a phone is. And when you go to the Hypogean jail for the first time, they just throw you in and they don't lock the door. They just kind of keep doing what they were doing.
It's like, this is what I'm supposed to do, man.
Yeah. There's not much else I really would want to talk leading up to Gascoigne other than, of course, there's a couple other NPCs.
You're introduced to one of your first optional quest lines.
Yeah, and it's the little girl.
The little girl.
Yeah, Gascoigne's daughter.
Gascoigne's daughter, which isn't revealed right away. Gascoigne is a boss that you face. He's the first real test. And the first part of it, it's basically like you're fighting another version of yourself.
Yeah.
And then he morphs into a very powerful, cruel beast.
And this is 100% teaching you this is how Bloodborne works. And I mean, Gascoigne, I hit my head on the wall a long time. It was funny. The first round I went against him I got him down to like a tenth of his health. And then when I went back, couldn't get him under half for a while.
It's a lot of cheesing the gravestones is what I call it. If you need to heal, if you can position yourself just right, there's no way he can reach you or slash you. Maybe he'll fire his gun, but it's still not going to harm you that much.
And it's nice that he's teaching you also how you should be playing.
Yes.
He's got his blunderbuss and
proactive.
He's able to stagger you. He's coming at you. And one thing that I was doing incorrectly, I found out later, was I was always dodging away from him. And the thing is, like, no, dodge towards him.
Yeah.
Because he's coming straight at you. He'll go past you, then you can get behind him.
Or dodge towards him while moving kind of diagonally.
So one thing that I think pretty much almost every enemy has is an opportunity to parry them, where right before they hit you with an attack, you pull up your gun, shoot them in the face.
And then you get like this really cool kind of stab scene.
A visceral attack.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what they're called. I always forget. Which heals your health.
Yeah, and it causes massive amounts of damage.
Yeah.
Not like crazy, but it's definitely helpful, and it slows the match down. And then you can also do a thing where you hold in R2 and do a charged attack, and sometimes that will open them up for a visceral attack as well. Not every guy.
Gascoigne doesn't stagger,
but
for the most part, I don't think he staggers. But
no, you have a couple opportunities. Well, one thing, so you meet this little girl, and her voice actress is just amazing. She's like, "Have you seen my daddy? My mom went to look for him, and he gets confused." I'm like, "Oh shit, you're home alone right now, and you're not like Macaulay Culkin. You're fucked."
Oh.
But she gives you this music box, and it says, "This helps Daddy remember. Could you go look for them?" And it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go look for you. And one thing...
Did you play the music box during the fight?
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those things that I had like
I found it out way later.
I was told I was supposed to. I don't even remember where I read that, but...
I didn't even realize that the two plots were connected until way later.
Yeah. That's one of those things, too, where if you're reading all the item descriptions at like the bottom of that one, it says something like Gascoigne, and I think it says his wife's name as well.
Verona or something.
And I forget which NPC says it, though, but it's like, just so you know, pretty much anything that's going on in the hunt, anything you're going to try and do to help is going to make things worse.
Yeah.
And it, across the board, everything you try and do to help people, it kind of ends up fucking them in the end anyways.
Yeah.
So you go fight Gascoigne, and eventually something that happens to all hunters, well, you also meet another hunter there named Eileen the Crow, who kind of tells you about what's happening to Gascoigne. She's a hunter of hunters. She's Eileen the Crow, and eventually hunters, after hunting long enough, they become enraged by the blood as well.
Right.
And then they turn into some of the worst kind of beasts. Just like how clerics become some of the strongest beasts. I don't know, people that are more equipped at fighting or have like a stronger understanding are just going to be more gruesome.
So something a little metatextual, which might actually make you like go, huh, is in Dark Souls, there's something called hollowing, where you're basically like this husk of a person, and the more you hollow, the less human you become, and eventually you're like the idiot characters roaming and just basically killing and doing whatever. They're zombies. The kind of metatextual aspect is if imagine you're playing Dark Souls and there's a boss you just can't beat and you stop playing the game. Even Miyazaki says that's like the equivalent of hollowing. So if you stop playing Bloodborne because you think it gets too difficult, it's the same as like succumbing to the beast.
I was ready to give up too. That first mob, because I was memorizing my route. I would get these two guys. I'd go over there and get these guys. And this was before I was even able to level up. I was just trying to get there.
Yeah.
And eventually I did.
In other games, you can like blow past things.
Yeah.
In this one, you have to memorize what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Eventually, I mean, I kind of did give up after 2.5 hours. But then like that night I was thinking about it. I'm like, if I did this differently, if I did that. On my second playthrough on New Game Plus, I just ran, because if you know the routes too, you can just run by everything once you know the levels.
First New Game Plus, you're pretty OP anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're good. Just do whatever you want. It's like, I consider New Game Plus in these games to be just like, oh, I'm going to fuck around and really figure this game out.
Yeah. Something that they do differently with Gascoigne is the music box too, because I don't think there's other enemies that really have any sort of unique items that like you use on them.
You can use the music box on another enemy.
I don't think so.
No, on Murgo's wet nurse.
The great ones are hard to fathom.
Yeah, there's even one that literally is nothing.
Formless Erden or Rom the vacuous idiot.
Well, Rom, I don't even think Rom's a great one.
Rom is technically, Rom is, I think, technically a kin because he's got the pale blood. She, yeah.
Rom's a girl, yeah.
But there's like a fuzzy line between when you become a great one or not. I guess we'll get to some of that.
I mean, there's a pretty standard way of knowing. It's when it says Nightmare Slain.
No, there's other great ones that you fight, like Amygdala is a great one. But
there are tons of amygdalas.
They're all one great one, though. It's all one aspect of the same great one. So that's why you're
not really killing it then.
You slayed part of one.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. They're basically Cthulhu monsters.
Cthulhu monsters, for sure.
Yeah.
Halfway through Gascoigne's fight, he does
transform into full beast mode.
Full beast mode.
Lycanthropy.
That guy fucked me up.
If you can kind of cheese him by running up the stairs, going on the roof, and then popping back down, you can get a lot of like distance between the both of you.
It didn't happen often in this game, but when I did have to stop what I was doing to farm for blood vials was the most annoying shit.
Farming for blood vials is important though, because it makes the resource that much more valuable. When you have an Estus flask, it regenerates every single time you go.
You take it for granted.
You take it for granted, and you always will. In this, it's just like, I better not fuck up this time. I swear to God, if I don't do this right, I'm going to put a hammer to my head.
And then, and you realize after you beat a boss, I'm like, I only use 6 fucking blood vials. I'm amazing. Or, when you're getting to the end of a battle, you're like, I have no more blood vials.
And then you're like, I hope that fortune favors me, because there's no other way this is going to happen.
Because I'm fucked at this point. What other items we got? I can throw pebbles at them.
Yeah.
I didn't use almost any items the first playthrough of the game either, because I was so afraid of them as a resource. I didn't know how many I'd get.
You can farm most of those consumables from anywhere at some point in the game, like Molotovs,
poison knives.
Exactly. They're pretty easy to find.
I guess I just didn't include them in my gameplay loop because...
Not for boss battles, but...
Yeah, and even I know for some it's good to like the Molotovs or like the numbing mist, the blood cocktails. There are things that are quite useful.
Yeah.
But I think Father Gascoigne for almost everybody is the first major hurdle.
It's the hurdle. And afterwards you feel so relieved and also a little afraid of what's coming up.
Yeah. You're like, I did it. It's like, oh, that was the first stage of the game.
It's like, oh, I literally thought like this was the game. Yeah. I thought this game was going to be short when I first played it. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, so this is kind of like a contained little experience thing. I feel like I already faced someone pretty important. I kind of understand what's going on here. And then you reach Oeden. I'm sorry, I always pronounce
Erden. I've heard it pronounced many ways.
I always say Oeden. Oeden. Oedin.
I don't know. I want to say Odin, but I heard other people say Erden.
I think that makes sense.
Much like the fact that he has no physical form, he has no actual pronounced form, I think.
Well, you reach this chapel, and this is one of your secondary hub areas where a lot of NPCs gather if you're a good person.
I am so happy that I didn't just turn and slice at the good Chapel Samaritan, because I don't know why I didn't, because he looks like a bad guy and he's creeping up right behind you.
One of the things is if someone isn't just actively attacking you, don't attack them. Any Souls game is because anyone could be anything to you. And one of the things that's great about these games is that you kill them, they're done. They're done. Your whole entire playthrough might get fucked up from it.
My most recent playthrough, I accidentally killed Eileen when I was killing Henrik.
Oh.
And it destroyed... I'm like, God damn it. I wanted to see your quest line through the end.
Yeah.
After you do kill Gas...
Which is such a pain in the ass. It should be friendly fire off. Like, it should be.
It isn't, and that's the way it is. And unfortunately, it's very permanent. I just turn the game off immediately, and they're like, no.
It's already saved.
Eileen's dead.
Yes.
It's like, God damn it.
I can ruin entire playthroughs.
After you beat Gascoigne, though, you do find this red jeweled brooch on this corpse of a woman, and you have the option to take it back to the little girl. She's like, did you find my mommy and daddy? And you can yeah, I found this on a body. But you can tell her to go to the chapel.
Oh, yeah.
Or Yosefka's clinic. And I remember very early on,
Thinking Yosefka was good.
Well, I'm like, what do I do? I thought they were both fine. Because this Samaritan, he gave me good vibes. Everything about him looks creepy. If you just to read his text, it's written all menacing and giggly. Yeah. But when you actually hear the voice actor, you're like, this is an okay dude. He's just really awkward. He's just like, hee hee. Yeah. I'd like to have some friends come over.
Well, and he's actually a decent character. He's nice. You just wouldn't think it. They kind of flip it on its head, because for the most part, I think the first time I played, I sent her to the clinic.
Yeah,
because I'm like, well, that's a nice lady who takes care of people.
She's a nurse.
She's a nurse. It's at this point that she is replaced.
Yeah, she is. You go back and
it's not the same Yosefka.
No, it's got a different voice actress even.
Yep,
and
it's supposedly her sister. This is the theory I've heard.
Yeah,
her crazy sister. I don't know.
It's definitely possible. I know that it's a member of the choir, based on if you fight her, she has unique weapons. I forget if it's the auger of Abretus or whatever, but and she's wearing choir garb, so she is someone who is working up in the orphanage. And at one point, all the choir just abandons everything up there, and they just run away. You find one in Byrgenworth. You find one in the Nightmare of Mensis, but she goes there, kills Yosefka, and just starts continuing her research, which there's two factions we're going to get into a little bit later. We are going to hear from some of the other amazing shows from the Greenlit Podcast Network. We're going to go to the Hunter's Dream and grab a couple more beers. Mm-hmm. And we'll be right back.
I call them blood vials.
During the break, Dylan was mentioning that he wanted to learn a song from Bloodborne on the accordion. Mm-hmm. And we were discussing the Bloodborne soundtrack. And one of the first things I did after beating this game was I saw the vinyl was available on Amazon Prime, and it happened to be the exact penny, up to the penny, how much free Amazon points I had saved up. And I was like, yep, I don't remember a lot of this music, but it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Well, one of the cool things is that when you're out exploring the world, there's no soundtrack. It's only encounters.
If you have enough insight, you're going to hear a baby crying.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. I guess if you have over 60 insight, you can hear the baby crying everywhere.
Yeah, a little annoying, which is why you don't want... So one of the things in this game is if you acquire insight too quickly, it kind of puts the kibosh on certain things in the game.
We'll talk about... Yeah. I have issues with insight. Mm-hmm. Cathedral Ward is another very cool spot, because the first thing that I noticed, you get into the Tomb of Erdin, there's a door straight and there's a door to the left. And it's just you got to just start exploring, choosing what you're going to do.
This is it now. Yeah.
And you get introduced to these new church robed Thumerian looking bad guys. Mm-hmm. I guess they're not Thumerians, but they have the look like the screaming face from that painting.
You mean the Scream by Edvard Munch?
Edvard Munch. Yes, of course. I'm a huge fan of the Munch.
I'm a huge Edvard Munch fan.
Yeah.
He's so good. You meet a bunch of them. There are even giant versions of them walking around, which I still have no clue.
Yeah.
What they're based on, or
One thing that I notice on the design of the giants is that they have shackles on their feet. So I'm guessing they were
imprisoned at some point
and maybe forced to overgo multiple treatments, and they eventually kind of just become big lumbering guards.
Well, the part that confuses me is that you're not introduced to the idea of gigantism or anything like that in this game.
Yeah.
So you wonder how they got that tall, or were they? There's got to be some blood ministration thing going on there.
Or is it they found them in the tombs in the labyrinth catacombs, or did they find something that had evolved in a weird way over such time?
Well, and then there's the question, because one of the things we didn't explain to the audience here is that the reason that everyone got this miracle drug, this blood, is because they found it deep underneath the ground.
Yeah.
In an ancient civilization that was destroyed much the same way that this one is.
And that's where the blood comes from. There's a whole ragtag crew that we're going to meet, most of them, eventually. In the DLC, we'll meet the ones we didn't meet.
Oh, yeah.
So you have two options in the cathedral ward. So essentially, you're told you want to get to the Grand Cathedral, and that's the next major spot that you're aiming to get to. But there's a lot of side things you can do.
You know, when people talk about Gascoigne, I would actually say that I think Vicar Amelia right after that is where everything really opens up.
Yeah, and the, Vicar Amelia, and then also once you beat Rom, the vacuous spider, that's when the world just kind of gets turned on its head in a big way.
Blammo, yep.
Kablamo. But if you did beat the cleric beast, you have access to that hunter chief emblem. But you got to spend 10,000 blood echoes, and I am not sacrificing that many blood echoes
At this point in the game. Yeah. No.
Eventually, you just fart that many blood echoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After killing one like boar.
Yeah. And so the other option is you take the left route. Something that happened to me right away, which I know didn't happen to every player. I went to go grab this item, and I'm standing there right outside the cathedral, and some hand, you don't even see it.
Lifted up into the air.
You get lifted up and die, and I was like, what the fuck was
I had it happen too. I literally said, what the fuck?
And I
wanted to just throw the controller.
I was like,
the door.
I was like, I literally just stepped outside of the building, and I Googled what happened, and like the top comment was, just keep playing, you'll figure it out later. So you kind of keep going down further into this like side chapel. You meet this character, you're another friendly character named Alfred.
Alfred's pretty cool.
Alfred's really cool until his quest line's done. You realize he's apeshit crazy and pretty manipulative.
Yeah.
But initially,
he's a vile blood hunter.
He's got blonde hair, blue eyes, got like a nice set of executioner robes.
He talks very kindly.
Like, I could be your friend. Want to be friends? Let's work together.
Okay. And then you're suddenly like, yay, I have someone to summon.
And yeah, he's the first person that can mention the Byrgenworth scholars dug deep underground. They dug deeper than they should have to find the old blood. And I forget what else you can ask him about. Maybe it's the the cathedral ward or something like that. He mentions about the healing church. That the healing church administers blood ministration. People come from all over the nearby villages, cities to come get it. Yep. I don't know the whole world or what's going on.
I think there are some Far East style characters, so I imagine that people hear tale of it and then they come to this world. So the main character is a foreigner. Father Gascoigne is a foreigner who moved there, fell in love with a lady, became best friends with Henrik, who we'll meet in a little bit. But Henrik also her dad.
Yeah, and it's like, oh man, Gascoigne, you had such a rough ending to your life. But
all of this not told through cutscenes, by the way.
You have to like infer it or go out of your way to find these things. Yeah. Just because the kid says granddad, and Henrik and Gascoigne are buddies, and you kind of just piece it together. And you know what's sad is that Henrik, after you beat Gascoigne, Henrik shows up where Gascoigne was killed, and that means the little girl was pretty close to getting to her granddad and possibly having a good ending.
She got eaten by a pig.
You go pick up the ribbon. You put it on. You can give the ribbon to the messengers, and they have cute little ribbons on their heads. When you see them.
Like that.
I think my favorite might be the top hat, or when you give them the urn, and they just all have urns over their heads.
That's the one I stuck with. Yeah, I'm just like, that is the cutest thing.
I was showing Carly last night the things I could put on, and she just giggled at the top hat. She liked that one.
Yeah, yeah. They're silly little guys.
And then even worse, at the very, near the end of the game, you go back to the little girl's house, and she's like, have you seen my little, there's another person there, have you seen my little sister? She was supposed to wait for me. I'm like, God damn it.
Man.
Then you reload the game, and the big sister is dead at the bottom of the ladder, and you get another ribbon.
Yep.
Or she fell and got killed or she didn't fall, the brick beast guy killed her.
I'm just going to assume that you'd find her smashed up if she was killed by a brick beast, not pushed off a ledge.
And I mean, at that point, everybody has gone crazy pretty much. And
the moon is low.
Dude, so you want to know what scares me besides everything on my first playthrough of this game? You get to the bottom, you keep going down into this side chapel, and eventually you find another lantern, and then it's, what is it? Old Yharnam?
Old Yharnam.
Old Yharnam, yeah, Old Yharnam. There's a note on the door. There's hunters are not welcome here. There's no reason for you to come here. Yep. Turn back now if you want your life safe or something like that. And I
open it.
No, I opened the door and then I'm like, I just walked backwards. I'm like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, it's very foreboding. You don't even know what they mean by Old Yharnam at first. You're like, wait, there's a new one and there's an old one. You get into this area, it's completely dilapidated.
Yeah.
It's grayer.
It's been like everything's got a lot of burn damage to it. Mm-hmm. And then the Jura starts yelling at you.
You there! Hunter! Didn't you see the warning? Turn back at once. Old Yharnam, burned and abandoned by men, is now home only to beasts. They are of no harm to those above. Turn back, or the hunter will face the hunt.
Jura is a hunter who actually was in the dream at one point. That's one of them.
He's one of them, and Eileen also is one.
Eileen is also one of them as well.
Yeah.
But after he's a part of the Powder Keg Hunters.
Yeah.
And the Powder Keg Hunters are known for basically slaughtering most of the beasts in Old Yharnam. Here's the thing. So,
dude, this is like just from like when you get the Powder Keg badge, just what is said in this item description is like you can infer an entire faction and what they went through.
So they sealed this place off because after a certain amount of time, people started getting like infected with a diseased version of the blood.
The ashen blood.
The ashen blood, which turns them into basically like little howler monkey zombies is how I'm going to call it.
Yeah, there's, I forget the other kind of, there's two kind of bad guys mostly there, but I read some good theories that, so essentially, I mean, the ashen blood kind of took over Old Yharnam and they had to sanction it off and burn it to the ground. And the theory that I think just makes the most sense is the church purposefully let this ashen blood into there as a way to help spread the powerful healing powers of blood ministration. So they purposely diseased their population in order to make their new healing cure.
Which still also doesn't make a ton of sense because, I mean, if you have a miracle drug, there's no advertising necessary.
Oh, I mean, maybe it's one of those things that he wanted, Lawrence wanted to consolidate power and just make things move quick, because when you get to the Cathedral Ward and pretty much everywhere else, there is a shitload of like religious statues. Clearly the church is in charge of everything.
Yeah.
And I could see this being a way to consolidate power. Maybe they had some other people saying, this is dangerous, don't use the blood.
Yeah.
And this would be a way to silence those detractors. Very House of Cards type move, possibly.
So there's a hunter who lives there.
Jura.
I
like Jura a lot.
He basically wields this massive Gatling gun that destroys you.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty much right away.
Hunter, you have no reason to be here, Hunter. Yeah. Go back.
And you got to make your way through and over to him. First time I met him, I killed him. Big mistake.
Well, you can come back later and have another quest beat with him, but it ends the same with you being given the Powder Keg badge. I wish I hadn't. Essentially, the Powder Kegs, they were kind of a more radical part of the Healing Church Hunters, which after Old Yharnam was destroyed, originally, before that, Gehrman ran the Hunter's Workshop, and they did it in the dead of night because they didn't want the populace to know that there were these beasts running around.
Yeah.
So they'd send out the hunters like, Batman. You don't ever see him. Batman's doing his work.
Yeah.
But eventually it got so out of control that they had to just burn a whole part of the city. And that's when the Healing Church Hunters took over and Gehrman was like retired. And we know what happens to Gehrman with all that. But
he dies.
But part of the Healing Church Hunters, they have a lot of different people working in there. The Powder Kegs, they're like, we're making like stake drivers and cannons.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, you guys are too crazy for us.
Yeah. The stake driver is a fun weapon. Yeah, it's sick. And just like, it's so interesting because you immediately are just like, why is there just some dude being like, oh no, you can't kill anyone here. These are people. I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? They're trying to kill me. It's like, I told you not to be here.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing?
You didn't have to come in here. You are as bad as they are, but you are choosing to kill them. I'm like, all right, you have your point. But also, the beasts, I guess he's essentially just trying to protect the beasts of Old Yharnam and just let them
out of guilt.
Yep, live out the last of their days without being more pain brought on them or whatever. But Jura is can be a difficult fight because you're up on top of this tower, but if you get to the top of the ladder and you just shoot your pistol at him 3 times, he just falls off the back.
Really?
Consistently.
I
Every
had
time.
no clue.
Yep. And he's a tough guy to beat that early on.
A lot of just like dodge maneuvers. I remember just killing him based on that.
Dude, there's nothing more frustrating than when I'm on top of a high
Then you dodge your
doing
way
a
off.
high battles like battleground. It happened with Ligarius. I was like owning him, and then I just dodged off of the castle. I'm like, I was so pissed.
Yeah.
Because that's not even, I mean,
It's not a good way to die.
yeah.
It's just like whoopsie doodle. It's like tripping.
So it was great during one of the games done quick, Bloodborne speedruns. Someone made a donation as Father Gascoigne. He's like, when I win, it's cheap and I'm cheating, but when everyone else wins, no one says a thing. And it's, I guess, kind of it's true. I mean, I cheese Jura. I'm sorry, Jura, but I killed you the easy way. Much later in the game, it's able to enter Old Yharnam from a different vantage point.
Yeah.
And you can sneak up on him without him seeing you and then have a conversation.
That's how I learned to do it eventually.
Yeah.
Because that's actually technically the easier way unless you're stuck at a point and you just really want to explore.
And I think this is the first time that you just run into other hunters in the world. Jura's buddy or Jura's henchman. There's a guy at the bottom that is just a hunter that runs around, and they're much more difficult than a regular bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you descend through Old Yharnam. Eventually, you get down further to like the ground. There's like a waterway down there. You fight some big old like wolf beasts.
Yeah.
Eventually, you make it to the blood-starved beast, which I know gave a lot of people a lot of trouble. I got him on my second try.
I got him my third or fourth, I think, because he was just really erratic, and I couldn't really get his idiosyncrasies down, because one of the things Bloodborne was really bad at the beginning was that you know how like in like a fighting game how you have an attack and you have to follow through before another command can be done. Mm-hmm. I think the Blood-starved beast, correct me if I'm wrong, actually could like halfway cancel one of its moves in between like a swipe of some sort and could just do something else.
Yeah.
So you were just kind of like, well, fuck, how was I even supposed to know about that?
And he's got a lot of poison maneuvers too, where
The poison shit always sucks. I hate poison in every single video game. I think it's the dumbest. In Final Fantasies, it's just like, no, why?
Yeah.
It's like a swamp, and you're just like, no, I have to.
Final Fantasy Tactics, fighting the swamps is the worst thing in the world. You literally step in a swamp. It's like, all right, there's your status effect.
Cool. It's not entertaining to me, and for the most part, there aren't many games that actually pull this off where they make it interesting. I feel like there's a way that like poison doesn't have to like slowly degrade your HP. It could do something else to you.
Yeah.
Like hinder your movement, or like every once in a while you have to like stop the cough or something. I don't know. I just find poison to be boring as shit.
Yeah. The Blood-starved beast is another instance of a boss where if you're paying attention, if you realize the name is Blood-starved beast, you recently got a new item called a pungent blood cocktail. If you read your items, you know, I should just throw that and just see what happens, because no matter what's happening in the battle, if you throw a blood cocktail, he stops fighting you and he just goes eating.
Yep.
And that's what I wound up doing as a way to just like get through it.
Cheese it. But it's meant to be that way.
Yeah. Also, the first time playing, I was like, insight is so rare. I thought it was so rare. I was like, I don't want to waste it on anything. And I know you could summon other characters, either in offline mode or on, like you could have real world players come. But on my latest playthrough, if there's an option to ever summon anyone, I'm like, yes, bring them in immediately.
Just do it.
They just let them distract the boss so you can do whatever you want.
Well, if depending on their play style, sometimes you're backing them up. There are certain enemies you'll find with Lady Maria. You probably will. You'll get tired of Lady Maria. I'm anxious to see if you do or don't, but
I'm sure I will, and I will beat it.
I did it by the skin of my fucking teeth, at least the first time.
I don't know. The Blood-starved beast, lore-wise, I didn't think there's anything too interesting to mention other than...
Originally, people thought it was Lawrence. Here's another bit of lore. So at the beginning of all of this, where they discover the blood far underneath in the Thumerian tombs, essentially there are 4 scholarly types who kind of are in charge. Like they're the head of their time. There's Willem, and Willem is the elder.
He's the party leader.
He's
your Cloud Strife of the group.
Also called Provost William, which just basically means like
Master.
Essentially that, or like honored teacher. It's kind of like saying sensei. There's Lawrence, who has his own shit. He founds the healing church based off of the physical administration of blood.
He's like, I know you did a lot of the work, but I'm going to just make it's like when your friend opens a really dope pizza place and he's like, you're doing it wrong, but I'm going to take all of your ideas and do it differently.
Right.
Turns out though that his pizza place is using blood in a really bad way.
Well, and so he goes up against Willem. The first cutscene you see in the game is them talking, him going, I'm here to leave now.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
But then there's Carol, who...
Yeah, Carol's interesting.
You don't see a lot of Carol, obviously.
You never see Carol.
Well, because Carol has the ability to hear the ramblings of the Great Ones, and he etches them into literal magic symbols.
Yeah, it's kind of like that movie, I forget, where they're talking with aliens and they're able to like realize that they have
Contact?
Not Contact, not the mechanical one.
Arrival with Amy
yeah.
Adams, yeah.
Yeah, where she realizes how she can like write symbols for them to understand.
It's mostly just circles, yeah.
But she's able to hear, Carol.
Yeah.
Carol's a man. Carol's able to kind of hear the mutterings of the Great Ones and transcribe them into a symbol that represents what they're saying. And
able to hear Odin, who by this time in the world has actually taken the form of almost the Christian God. If there's any, because there are chapels dedicated to him, he was widely worshipped.
He is at once everywhere and nowhere and above us. And
the Father, the Son, you can't see him. Sometimes he talks to you, though.
Responsible for virgin births.
Yes, exactly.
There is a great perversion of many of the great world religions in this game.
There's a ton of them.
Oh, it's so good.
It just becomes clear to you, and I'm just like, who's Odin? And was he like a really cool badass warrior? No, it's just the god they worship.
That guy took like that Joseph Campbell book on mythology.
You mean the hero with 1,000 faces?
There's a lot of
Bradley?
No,
There are a few of them.
He wrote quite a few, but
I know.
He took Joseph Campbell, turned him on his head, and like painted it black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last one is Mikolash.
Mikolash. I love
From the School of Mensis.
Mikolash Cage, as some people call him.
Mikolash Cage. That is fucking funny.
I've heard some people make the argument that he is actually the most evil character in the game.
He is. He's basically responsible for that night of the hunt in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and
because he was trying to commune directly with Murgo. This is rough. We could probably make a 10-part series on this.
We're gonna aim for a 2-parter.
I fucking hope so.
Yeah. You get the Thumaran Chalice after the Blood-Starved Beast as well. So you're able to go down into the Chalice dungeons, which I don't want to talk about. Essentially,
they're boring.
They're semi-randomly generated. They're reusing a lot of bosses. It's a roguelike. It's a lot of work to eventually get to one important story beat, and that's eventually you see Queen Yharnam.
But it's not even really a story beat. It's literally just, oh, you want to face this broad? Okay.
It helps you understand that Queen Yharnam was impregnated by formless Erden. She was a Thumaran. And it helps you understand that it's possible to exist in multiple ways, like in the real world or in the nightmare at multiple times. If you interact with the Great Ones, eventually, like, your realities get torn asunder.
Yeah, it splits you up. So even Gehrman, who we meet in the Hunter's Dream, is dead in the real world. You
don't actually see his dead body, I don't think, though, but he is dead.
It's deeply implied.
Well, at some points, though, he disappears completely from the dream, and I've heard some people say that he's actually going around and, like...
I legitimately don't think so.
Yeah.
I think that the world of the dream is his kind of shit, and he's kind of like the master of it. It's almost like an omniscience that he gains over it. Because clearly it's just like, if he disappears for a while, like, I don't know what it means if... I don't think he's waking up. I don't think he has the mobility for it.
We learn a lot more about Gehrman in the Old Hunters DLC with Maria, but this point, after you beat the Blood-Starved Beast, that's when all of a sudden the kidnappers are unleashed from Yahar Ghul, the unseen village, And that's also when
Those ones are scary. They got a big bag.
I mean, dude, those guys are tough.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
even
rough.
as a seasoned player, they still fucked me up.
Oh, yeah. They take out at least half your health.
And that's also, though, when the choir abandons, like, all of them just leave the upper cathedral ward, and then they start scattering. That's when Imposter Yosefka, when she goes down there and starts fucking up. She might have went down a little earlier, but...
She, from what I understand, it's right after you beat Gascoigne.
Yeah. Yep, because then you have the option to send them down.
The
But
little girl, too, yeah.
for some reason, the choir around this time, they all leave the upper cathedral ward and they scatter. But since they do scatter from up there, the door opens and you're able to take the elevator up to the Healing Church workshop for the first time. And Gehrman even says, like, you should go check it out. There might be some useful things up there.
There are quite a few useful things.
You run into your first... No, it's not your first wheelchair Gatling gun, but this is the first one the first guy, he's facing the wrong direction in Central Yharnam, so he never got me.
Wheelchair Gatling gun.
This guy, I just like walk up and he's just like, it's like, you bastard.
Just unleashing on you, and you strafe him a little. It's not the worst thing.
Yeah.
I farmed a lot in that area. That's all I remember.
You're able to, I mean, you can go to the top of the Healing Church workshop and there's a door that says you need a key to get up here.
Or you can descend all the way down on planks.
And it's tough to actually get into where the old workshop that resembles the Hunter's Dream is. It's not an easy fall.
So this is in every Souls game too. These things dropping down, especially in Dark Souls 2. There's literally a place called the Gutter, and you have to get a little special ring that saves you from a certain amount of fall damage. But even then, you've still got to be chugging that Estus, baby. Life gems are in Dark Souls 2.
Okay.
It changes. But you have to descend your way down. You have to be very precise. Sometimes you have to make a dumb jump.
Yeah.
And it can fuck you up. Most people don't even deal with this shit until later game. Because there's not a lot of point to it.
Well, there's one major point to it. It's really spooky. You make it into the Gehrman's old workshop,
Which looks exactly like the Hunter's Dream.
and it is bizarre, and it's eerie that you're like seeing something you shouldn't. There is a doll that is clearly like a doll that existed beforehand. There is a third umbilical cord, which I heard translations. Some people call it just the cord of the eye in other languages, but this is where you can get one of your third umbilical cords you need for the end. I don't know if this is where Gehrman did it, but eventually Gehrman does like make a deal with the moon presence or tries to summon a great one.
I think it's implied there that he consumed it.
Yeah.
And the moon presence approached him. But the fact that he didn't have more of a great one actually inside of him at the time, he was enslaved.
Yeah. And that's every character in the game is trying to either become great ones or speak with the great ones or understand the great ones.
Even you.
And the only character that can achieve it and do so in a good way rather than,
arguable. But
we don't know what happens to our character after the good ending, but
become a little worm man. Yeah, I think the idea is that everyone tries real hard and everyone fucks up. I think that's the theme of most of these Souls games anyway, but Bloodborne especially is just like the horror of it is forcing you to face your decisions and following through on those decisions. Mm-hmm. The first time I played the game, I did not get all 3 umbilical cords.
Yeah.
And the first time I did it, I'm like, oh, I'll submit, sure. And I got the Dawn ending.
Yeah.
Where you wake up from the dream.
Yeah.
And the tide has been stemmed because working for something.
So you like Gehrman kill you?
I like Gehrman kill me the first time, yeah.
Yeah. I did.
But he didn't kill you.
I tried not to let Gehrman kill me many times, but he killed me many times. But I put up a fight.
So, like, essentially when, at the end of the game, you get a choice, because after you defeat Murgo's wet nurse, thereby just... my God, I can't believe it.
This
far
is
so... Like, this could just be a discussion that I have for 10 hours. I swear to God.
Yeah, but you have to go through the Healing Church workshop in order to get to the backside of the cathedral ward.
Yes.
If you don't want to buy the emblem. So you eventually go all the way through that. At this point... there's 2 side areas. It's very likely a kidnapper kicked your ass and swiped you up.
Yeah.
And this genuinely freaked me out and pissed me off.
Yeah.
It's not a regular death. You get that you died, but all of a sudden you wake up. You could be on the other end of the planet. You don't know where you are.
This is another Dark Souls thing in the Crystal Sanctuary in Dark Souls 1. You'll figure it out, but there are some enemies that actually, like, when they kill you, if you don't like rage quit, you'll end up in a different part of the world.
Yeah, and well, naive little me, I'm in this Hypogean jail is what it's called. I thought, okay, I'll die and then I'll just go back to this other spot. Nope, you're back in jail. It's not until you actually can unlock another lamp, which it really reinforces that exploration again, and it kind of just cripples
mostly
you.
It's mostly just up like that weird staircase altar.
Well,
it's not hard to get to.
Well, but you don't know where you're going because you can you're going up the staircase. If you want to go straight out, like the first door, you wind up in another little like cell area, and eventually you can just wind up by Dark Beast Parl, or you go right out of the jail cell and you can go meet another NPC named Adela the Nun, and you have to be wearing church garb. But she's like, "Oh yeah, what's up, dude? I like church boys. Can I hang out with yous?" Kinda. She gets super jealous if you don't use her blood. But there's this hot prostitute you meet on the way there, too, named Ariana, and she's like, yo, dog, I can give you blood, but I'm not working tonight.
It's like, I'm already preggers.
And this is turning the virgin birth on its head again because, she is the one who becomes impregnated. Well, fuck, there's so much to this game.
There's so much. We're not even going to get to
that. We'll send all of them, all of the NPCs. You meet the bigoted old man and the lonely old woman from Central Yharnam. You send them all to the Erden Chapel. Don't send anyone to Yosefka's clinic except the afflicted beggar. We'll get there.
You might wonder why nobody can descend upon Erden Chapel, and that's because they have special incenses that they burn.
Yes.
It keeps away the ghoulies.
And that's also how you know when NPC characters have windows or doors you can talk to because they'll have that incense burning out there.
Yep.
And Eileen the Crow, her face mask has incense that's burning constantly to like help ward off as well.
It's pretty sick. I like it a lot.
She has maybe the coolest design in the game.
Yeah, she kind of looks like a plague doctor
with like that the crow, like the feathered wing cape. Yeah. Super great. Hypogean Jail isn't like crazy interesting at this point. It's part of the secret Yahar Ghul hidden village, but you don't see too much of it yet.
Can't.
But you can get the Tonitrus, which is a weapon a lot of people like, the little lightning club made by Archibald, who is like the Tesla of this world.
It's pretty rad. I never found myself using it. I like cleaving people, baby.
So my first playthrough, you run into the Dark Beast Parl, and he was too tough, and I'm like, nope, pass. I'll come back later.
A lot of people do that too. I did it.
The second playthrough, I actually was able to beat him if you can bring another like NPC in to distract him.
Yeah.
Also, if you just realize on those really big beasts, just go to the back and attack their butt and their legs that they won't get you for a lot of their stuff.
Can't kick.
That's half the strategy for a lot of the bosses I fight.
Yeah, that's what most of them are. It depends on how quickly they can turn around.
Dark Beast Parl is interesting because just when I think that I know everything about this world, I found out he's a lightning beast from Loran. I'm like, well, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of Loran before. Or Lauren. I guess Lauren is how a lot of people would say it. Lauren was an ancient civilization. I think that's where the Thumerans are from.
They're from Thumeria.
They're from Thumeru, but Lauren was swallowed up into the nightmare.
Yeah.
And that's like the ancient labyrinths and Thumeru, like Lauren is part of it as well. So Lauren and
it absorbs. That's essentially what's happening in the story when you're playing it. Is that essentially it's just civilization built on top of civilization.
Yeah.
And so it absorbs every single one. It can kind of get it. It's like it's its own giant blobby parasite.
So Lauren is before Thumeru.
Yeah.
I'm guessing.
I mean, that's up for debate. I guess I don't know enough.
The only like real Lauren characters that you run into, I mean, there's none that are dialogue characters, but you run into like Silver Beast and the Dark Beast Parl. These are Lauren beasts, which I was like, okay, well, there's another piece of lore.
It might also be like a neighboring country that got swallowed up many eons ago.
Maybe like Canehurst is to
modern. Canehurst. I love Canehurst.
Canehurst is the best. But up next, let's go into some straight up like witchy times and going to Hemwick Charnel Lane, which I absolutely adore.
That is one of the coolest areas of the game, period. You and I, we grew up in areas where you could definitely like go out into the woods and it had a certain feel to it, right?
Yeah.
And there's something about this that makes me think of like northeast Wisconsin.
Yeah. And if you were to just venture out a little bit into the woods in northeast Wisconsin and see 3 women dancing around a fire, I'd be like, I would nope out of there very hard. And this is a dumping ground for the School of Mensis, we find out later. This is where they're dumping their experiments. And all of these, like, the first thing you walk through is a cemetery crammed with, like, more headstones than you've ever seen before.
Yeah.
It's comical. Eventually, you're just, like, stacking headstones on each other, but it looks great.
Well, the reason I say that it reminds me of, like, northeast Wisconsin is the area where my paternal side settled. It's near, like, that Peshtigo area, pretty close to that. Mm-hmm. And the Oneida actually used to like bury their dead next to like trees. So you would see, like, if you venture off far enough into the forest, you can actually see those burial mounds.
Wow.
And they were almost like their tombstones.
Yeah.
And so there's like a real creepy aspect to all of it. This like, and it's almost like the entire time you've been playing this, you're like, what is the season? What's going, like, what's the weather actually like in this place? It's to me, it's definitely fall. It's fall. It's like October.
Yeah.
And it looks like this, especially once you get to Hemwick.
And it feels like Halloween to an extent, too.
Yeah.
I mean, besides, like, all of these massive hunters and dogs you have to run through, the first thing you run into after that is a bunch of women dancing around fires.
Crones, yeah.
Hemwick Charnel Lane, Cemetery Village. This is... So the first time that insight can play a major factor. If you have more than 15 insight, mad ones will spawn in this location outside of the boss area, which I never had that much when I go through the first time, so I haven't experienced that.
I did. Because I'm a hoarder.
Yeah.
And they're pretty rough. They're hard to get past. You can sneak past them, but
this wasn't the most difficult spot, I guess, a lot of the bad guys until you get to the executioners, and those guys are tough.
I think that there are some areas by like cliffs.
Yeah, you go through that really spooky.
The brick monsters.
You go through
really
a spooky. That stable you go through is super spooky.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of too. And then you're traveling across the roofs to kind of loop around, and I'm like, all right, fuck this.
Yeah, and that's the first time
the hard way.
This is the first time you see Castle Canehurst off in the distance too, and I was like, I want to go over there.
You don't know how.
You don't know how yet.
It took me looking at a guide to find my way.
And there got to be a point in this game where if I wasn't to look at a guide, I would not have gotten to certain things.
You wouldn't have seen most of it.
If you had someone who was the most seasoned Souls player, they would probably be able to parse out a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But I would not have. As a first-time player, I didn't even realize what a lot of the things were going on.
A lot of this stuff is put in for multiple playthroughs. It's designed in a way where it rewards you for playing multiple times. If you didn't see your first playthrough, the second time playthrough, you'll just be like, God damn it, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I missed this whole entire thing. There was a whole nother map? Are you fucking kidding me?
Ugh.
That's what happened. My first playthrough, I never reached Castle Canehurst.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, because the second time I went through it, I'm like, oh, it's basically Dracula's castle.
Because they managed to take what I think is the best level in the entire game and make it so completely optional, a lot of people miss it.
Yeah. How are you supposed to know that you get a little invitation, then you stand in an area in this place?
The invitation does say stand by the obelisk in Hemwick Charnel Lane, but you don't know where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
The Witches of Hemwick.
Very interesting fight.
I'd never found it to be difficult. The first time even, I didn't die once.
It can be annoying.
It can be annoying because if you don't kill them fast enough, they like start regenerating health, and there's a second witch that shows up, and essentially they just spawn more bad guys. If you actually look at the witches' design, they're pretty interesting because this is just a bastardization of what Byrgenworth is trying to do, what Willem was trying to do. He's trying to get more eyes in his head, and what the witches are doing are stealing eyes from all of the bodies that are winding up there and just making clothing out of them.
Yep.
They're just clothed in eyes, and it's a perversion that's working. They're able to do like some weird witchcraft because of it.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I really dig it. Overall, though, the boss battle wasn't tough, and I also find it interesting that if you go in there with 0 insight, they can't spawn any mad ones.
Oh, really?
They can't spawn any mad ones.
You're just too much of a big-ass dum-dum?
It's just the witch. Yeah, you're so dumb they can't even use witchcraft on you.
Shit. That's fucking funny. I had no idea about that because most of the time you use some of your resources.
Well, plus just by walking in the room, you gain 1 insight. So you actually have to go in, go out, use your insight, and come back without any. Yeah, which I did the second time because I actually just went in there and I just like purposely died. I want to see what happens when I go in without insight. And this is where you get the
rune thing,
the rune workshop tool, and you're able to start using your runes,
which is an important part of the game.
It's one of those things that is going to be something you want to spend some time making sure you have the right runes equipped from then on. My first time playing, I don't think I was upgrading my weapons until maybe Forbidden Woods. I was just being stupid.
Really?
I don't know when I started.
That's messy.
I don't know when I started. I didn't know how the workshop all worked. And
it's weird.
Going back, I beat Gascoigne first try.
With a non-plus sword?
On my second time, because I was actually leveling up my weapons stuff. I beat Vicar Amelia first try, Bloodstarved Beast first try, Cleric Beast. I did
Vicar Amelia gave me a lot of trouble.
Speaking of Vicar Amelia, let's talk about this puppy dog lady.
Yeah, no, I consider more of like a jackalope almost.
Because she does have antlers.
She does have antlers.
It's really great. So she's actually in the Grand Cathedral, which you've been trying to get to since you got through Gascoigne.
But it's all locked and shit.
Well, you get in there and she's bent over. She's the current head of the Healing Church. She's got her pendant, which it's very much the iconography of communion that she has with the left hand over the right. Yep, at the level of the heart, and she holds it in.
Let us pray, let us wish to partake in communion and feast upon the old blood. Our thirst for blood satiates us, soothes our fears. Seek the old blood. But beware the frailty of men. Their wills are weak, minds young. The foul beasts will dangle nectar and lure the meek into the depths. Remain wary of the frailty of men. Their wills are weak, minds young. Were it not for fear, death would go unlamented. Seek the old blood.
You don't know this till after the battle, but she's saying, like, seek the old blood. Men are folly, like, they're weak. We must seek the old blood. Because after this, she turns into the jackalope lady, which it's kind of a silly design, but I also really dig it.
It's deeply disturbing. Her hair becomes ghostly long and it flows in the wind. It's ghastly. It's a really creepy design. Even if this were like a dog face, the amount of teeth you see is not normal for a dog.
And this is another example of the stronger or like the higher up people are in the church or the workshops, they become the more terrifying beasts.
The more ministration they have, the more blood they actually get, but they get the good shit.
Yeah, they get the pure shit.
Yep.
They don't get the swag that's made it to South Dakota. They're getting the good stuff from California.
Well, the fact that she wants to fight you as a defensive tactic is really interesting too.
Yeah.
Because it implies that she was waiting for someone to intrude on her. Because when I got there, I thought that this was just like some random tortured woman who got like beaten up. No, she's defending the chapel.
I'm always curious on the actual time frame. A lot of things happen, but because I guess like when Lawrence and Willem had their schism, their little break with each other, it was probably like at least 50 years ago. Because just for the church to have that much power and to have all those statues put up,
couldn't be 50.
It's a while ago though. It's got to be at least 20, 30 years probably.
20, 30. I might agree with that because when you meet Willem in Byrgenworth, he looks like the last pope.
John Paul himself sitting up there.
Oh, no. Emperor Palpatine. Benedict. Sorry. Benedict XVI.
I like Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, that's what I used to call him. Yeah, he just looks grizzled.
I'm too weak. But yeah, it's interesting. Like you were saying, she was human until the moment you showed up. I'm wondering how long was the Healing Church still operating with them? Just like
It was still
it's like there's giants in the plaza. There are straight up monsters everywhere.
Everything's falling apart. This is the last thing I can do to hold on to my ideals, and I'm going to do it right now.
The Cleric Beast and Gascoigne, there's still people trying to contain the problem and contain the hunt and do what's right. But you have Vicar Amelia, and she's seeking the old blood. She's like, I want to evolve. I want to ascend.
Well, that's their whole shit.
Well, that's their whole shit, but this is a different kind of bad than the other guys who have just like become polluted and tainted by this. She actually is seeking to be tainted. She is or ascending. I don't know. It's just got like a different feel to it. And the Witches of Henwick is the same though. Like they're seeking some strange power,
and they're doing it in like subways is what I would subways.
They're doing it in subways.
They're doing it the Jared Fogle way.
Jimmy John's is the optional side castle.
Well, what's really cool, especially because we were talking about how it's either based on insight, which is the metaphysical, and the blood, which is tangible and physical. It's this really interesting dichotomy. It's probably in a lot of ways it's science versus spiritualism. But when you see it played out, it kind of switches its ideologies, because evolution through physicality is not something that a lot of religions enjoy talking about all that much.
And it is such a great perversion of Christian mythology too, because if you told a Christian person, like, those people believe that they're eating the blood of like some old gods and they're going to get powerful through that. I'm like, that is specifically what Catholics do. Yeah. You're eating the blood. And
I had that grape juice.
We had real wine where I'm from, even as kids.
For a while they did, and then the parents just didn't like it.
And I was a kid. I'm like, wait a second, I'm going to drink it.
And then you never looked back.
But it is, a pure perversion where you are taking the blood of a god and it's trying to make you a better person because of it. But instead,
well, it's not the blood of a god, though. They tell you they tried to make it more holy than what it was. It was the blood of something that a god created.
Are we talking about Jesus? Or are we talking about Abridus?
We're talking about Abridus.
Okay.
Or whatever else they found in the tombs.
Jesus is akin technically.
Technically, but he's also it's like if Odin came to Earth as his own son.
But through a vessel of a human person, because he is God. Jesus is God and man.
Yeah.
He's kin. He would bleed pale blood.
Murgo is the closest to Jesus.
Yep. And also, just in the same way that you can't ever see Murgo, you can't ever see Jesus.
No, yeah, it's true. Why would an infant great one be visible?
Especially if you were like made from an invisible dude. It's like if the Invisible Man had a baby, would he be half invisible?
Well, even the wet nurse was invisible.
Well, that's because I think it might be Erden.
No,
there's some good theories on that one.
It's a wet nurse, dude. Erden is like specifically gendered as male because it impregnates.
Yeah, it's a formless creature that's just looking over it, though. And to assign genders to a great one is a slippery slope, I think.
Yeah, but it's also a very
that is a huge that is an animal construct that the great ones are beyond, in my opinion.
Yeah, but even when Abredas is daughter of the cosmos.
I think it just might be through trying to understand some things about them, putting them through the language system.
Maybe, but I don't know if he's so powerful, why can't he impregnate a male?
Who says they haven't?
Ooh, I think that's a weird one.
Yeah. After you beat Vicar Amelia, you go up and you touch this big beast skull, which it turns out it's Lawrence's skull, which I love that you get to interact with Lawrence much later on in the DLC. But you touch the skull and you get the vision of Willem, the Provost Willem, and Lawrence saying, I'm leaving Byrgenworth.
Master Willem, I've come to bid you farewell.
Oh, I know. You think now to betray me.
No, but you will never listen. I tell you, I will not forget our adage.
We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Our eyes are yet to open.
Fear the old blood.
And it's amazing how sparse like the dialogue is. It's not exposition dump. It's 10 things, like 10 sentences where you get that Lawrence owes a lot to Willem, has a lot of respect for him.
Yep.
And Willem also thinks so highly of his student that he says, "You're betraying me."
Yeah.
And they both agree, though, at the end, like, "All right, don't. I will remember your adage, Master."
Which he doesn't.
He immediately just abandons it, but it's
like
fear the old blood.
Yeah. Fear the blood that we found underneath. Whereas he was trying to almost Zen Buddhism style, Willem. He was trying to achieve his ascension through gaining more and more knowledge and not letting it be physical.
More insight. He sought to gain eyes on the inside.
Yes.
Which
is very Buddhist. It's very it's very Eastern philosophy.
And this is where we're going to leave off for this episode. Big thanks to Patreon producers Brian Ward, Mike Nino, and Tyler Keller, and all of our other amazing Patreon supporters. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to not be losing so much money having all of this podcast stuff going on.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know.
We love doing it. If you want to support us, how can they do that, Dylan?
You can find us on patreon.com. We've got a ton of tiers at the $1, $3, $5 range, and even beyond that. You can actually support us as well by leaving us reviews.
That does that does so much for us.
It gets us kind of looked at. Recommend us to a friend. It's one of those things where if we got enough boots on the ground, we have a little army.
Mm-hmm. And something that you can also get with Patreon is access to special episodes much earlier, including Bloodborne Part 2, because that's going to be a Patreon specific episode for at least a while. Yeah, seek the Patreon blood, because you'll be able to hear the rest of.
They can get that from the $3 range, correct?
Yeah, it's only $3 a month, and it'd be super cool. We'd really appreciate it, because $3 might not seem a lot to you, but if every one of you were to give us a couple bucks, we could eventually be spending a lot more time on this. And actually, I don't know if I'd want to spend more time on lore. With Bloodborne, I do. But eventually, I don't want to do it for Sonic the Hedgehog. Mortal Kombat was good.
Well, you know, if you donate enough, you get to choose what we talk about. And I'm thinking, wink, wink. I'd love to do the Sonic Archie comics.
Okay.
Force us to do it.
Yeah.
Brad's not going to do it until you force us to, though.
That is true. We are on Facebook at Hair of the Dogcast, Instagram at Hair of the Dogcast. We are on Twitter at Hot Dogcast. If you have any feedback or if you want to talk Bloodborne stuff, just reach out to us. I've been Dylan.
And I've been Brad.
Shit, I said that wrong.
That's okay. Keep it in. I like that.
We're Raw Dogs. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.